Charlie Manson, meanwhile, divides his time between the Spahn Ranch and the Barker Ranch, an even more remote spread in California's rugged Death Valley. In early October, officers raid the Barker Ranch and arrest Manson and several family members on arson and car theft charges. Among them is Susan Atkins, who's wanted for yet another murder. That of Gary Hinman, a music teacher with ties to the Manson family. But police have stumbled upon far more than just a car theft ring or one murder suspect. Back in Los Angeles, inside the Sybil Brand Institute for Women, the talkative Atkins confides to an older cellmate. With childlike glee, Atkins brags about personally killing Sharon Tate, while the actress pleaded for the life of her unborn child. Referring to Manson as Christ, Atkins spins a macabre tale of multiple murders. Murders committed by family members under Charlie's direction. Atkins' cellmate reports the story to police. It's the break they've been hoping for. It's also a golden opportunity for Vincent Bugliosi. The young prosecutor is elated when he's assigned to try the case along with Aaron Stovitz.
He thought that that was the crime of the century and the prosecution of the century, and it would make him the greatest prosecutor. And I told him one time, Vince, there'll be other cases and no one ever remembers the prosecutor. Well, I was wrong. They remembered Mr. Bugliosi.
With his customary zeal, Bugliosi takes charge of the field investigation. He works nearly round the clock, gathering evidence against the man he sees as a serious new menace to society, Charles Manson.
The typical role of a prosecutor is to present evidence in court gathered by law enforcement agencies. It's not his job to investigate the case. He's not trained to do that. On the other hand, there's nothing that prohibits him from going out and investigating cases, and I always did that on a major case.
After searching for clues at the Spahn Ranch, Bugliosi drives 200 miles to Independence, California, where Manson is still being held on car theft charges. Bugliosi hopes to get a glimpse of Manson himself, the man some claim wields a strange power over life and death. On the streets of the small desert town, Bugliosi meets two of Manson's most loyal women, Lynette Squeaky Fromm and Sandra Good. He's shocked to find an eerie sameness about them, as if their individual personalities have been erased. Bugliosi will later write about all the Manson women. They reminded me less of human beings than Barbie dolls. The more he investigates, the more Bugliosi learns about Manson's unusual powers. Family members often say amen after Charlie speaks, and he's able to silence them simply with a stare. At last, the prosecutor sees his rival in the flesh as Manson is escorted from the Independence jail.
He's about 5 feet 2 inches tall, slightly built, a shade hunchbacked, long hair, a beard. He looked somewhat scraggly. In short, he was not an imposing figure. But I knew that it would be the biggest mistake that I could make to underestimate him, because I had already learned of the incredible power that he had to command and get other people to kill for him.
Back in Los Angeles, in exchange for being spared the death penalty, Susan Atkins testifies before the grand jury. Atkins is indicted on murder charges along with Manson. Also indicted are Watson, who fights extradition from his home state of Texas and will be tried separately, Krenwinkel, Kasabian, and Leslie Van Houten, a former honor student and homecoming queen who helped murder the LaBiancas. The media creates an instant monster, portraying Manson as the worst case example of the hippie movement. To Bugliosi, Manson is a monster, someone so violently angry at society that he must be stopped. Yet in taking on Manson, the young prosecutor faces a formidable challenge, linking Manson to the murders. Although Manson drove to the La Bianca house and helped tie up the victims, he was not present when any one of the murders were carried out. He claims complete innocence.
I feel good feelings towards everything. I feel no bad. I know no bad.
Okay, gentlemen.
To convict Manson of murder, Bugliosi must prove conspiracy beyond a reasonable doubt.
There's no smoking gun in this case. This was a case, a classic case of circumstantial evidence, placing one piece of evidence upon another until ultimately there was a strong mosaic of guilt.
Except for Kasabian, a recent newcomer to the family who did not actually participate in the murders, the women show a complete lack of remorse for the tragedy they've caused. Bugliosi wonders what evil force has turned them into cold-blooded killing machines.
One of the most startling things was realizing that these people actually thought that Manson was the second coming of Christ. They thought that this man was not only Christ, but also the devil, all wrapped up into one person. And they had many names for him. They called him Jesus, they called him JC, they called him Satan, they called him the One. And it was at that point that I realized the tremendous grip that he had on their mind.
Bugliosi needs no better example than Susan Atkins. As the trial approaches, the prosecution's star witness changes her mind about testifying, more willing to face the gas chamber than show disloyalty to Charlie. Bugliosi and Stovitz quickly cut a deal with Linda Kasabian, who hopes to regain custody of her children when the trial is over. In exchange for total immunity from prosecution, she agrees to testify against the defendants, despite the certain risk to her own life. The shadow of several other murders by Manson family members, including the torture killing of Gary Hinman, already hovers over the upcoming trial. Sandra Good has been caught in the courthouse carrying a buck knife, and courtroom security has been tightened. It's in this climate of fear that the trial finally gets underway in the summer of 1970. The moment of destiny for both Charles Manson and Vincent Bugliosi is finally at hand.